Good morning, another Monday morning, and welcome to our Monday Motivation Spotlight series. Here today from Jerusalem. For those of you that are regulars, you'll notice that I'm in a different background today. So nothing like the holy city of Jerusalem. I'm Lesley Kaplan. I'm your host and founder of the series, and I welcome you today to this week as well as every week. This series is also, as you know, co-hosted by ACI and sponsored this month by Israel Properties. Thank you to those. And we have a fabulous guest today, somebody who's become a friend. She's a colleague. And yes, you'll notice that we have the same accent. We actually didn't know each other from South Africa, but I've gotten to know Justine through our different networking groups and through being both women in business in our time here in Israel. So Justine, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on our show today. Thank you for joining. I remind you all that this is an inspirational show, an inspirational 30 minutes. Everything is positive. We're going to be talking about lots of different things. If you have any questions, anything you want to add, any moments of inspiration, which you gain from now during the meeting, as well as from after, certainly Justine's going to help us with a lot of different information that you can use afterwards and think and inspire yourself, take forward with you. So don't forget to make a note of that. And as I say, write also, it's not an official networking group, but you're welcome to write details of your business. This series was started with the double aim of number one, inspiring us, and number two, giving focus and exposure to business owners in and around Israel. So feel free to write your information about your business in the chat. Feel free to give links to your different sites, social media, or website. Okay, I've spoken enough. So I'm going to now officially spotlight our guest, Justine. We're going to be going through just a couple of minutes before 9:30, 30 minutes, 28 minutes of inspiration. Justine is a registered clinical dietitian and mindset mentor. She helps her clients with a lot of different areas in terms of managing their lives, reducing stresses, and of course, emotional eating and many other things which she's going to share with us. Justine, good morning. Thank you for being our guest today.
Good morning, Lesley. Thank you so much. I'm really excited. And today is the perfect weather to speak about emotional eating. It is rainy. It is chilly. I got my special warm snuggly on in order to be able to really feel the mood. So thank you for the introduction. And yes, I am from South Africa. So a little bit of background before I get into the, as I like to call it, the meat of today's talk. I have been working as a clinical dietitian in private practice since I qualified at the end of 1999, which gives away my age. It's a really long time ago. And through the years that I have been working, I have evolved the way that I practice based on obviously the experience that I've collected over the time, as well as my own self-reflection and how my relationship with food and my body has also evolved over this period of time. So why do I mention that? Because one of the things that Lesley asked me to address today was emotional eating and the mind-body relationship. And this is something that I have had a lot of experience with, not only in my own practice, but in my own private life as well. As a teenager, I became aware of my body, I started dieting, even though I never really needed to. And this developed, unfortunately for me, a very negative relationship with food in my body, where I would try and restrict in order to lose weight and then couldn't maintain that and ended up overeating as a result. And this developed a pattern, unfortunately, which was a very negative association with food in my body. And through the work that I've been doing over the last 24 years, not only have I been able to help other people who are going through a similar situation, but myself as well. And I realized a very long time ago that having a plan, having a diet to eat is unfortunately not the answer. Why do I say that? My title is I'm a clinical dietitian. Surely I should be giving people diets left, right, and center and holding them accountable. As some of my clients like to say, I'm coming to you because I see you as a policeman. That's the last thing I ever want anybody to think of me as. Yes, do I hold you accountable, but in a way that you are nourishing and honoring your body for what you need, and not because of an outside influence that has been placed on you to try and be strict and go against what your natural body is telling you. So at a time like this, to a war of uncertainty, we have no idea how long this is going on for. And I want to just address what most of my clients have been experiencing, personally, how I've been finding this time, because I think that it will speak to a lot of what you are probably also experiencing. And if any of what I'm about to say is going to resonate for you, I invite you to write in the chat and let me know if this is something that you really feel is speaking to you, and if this is something you would like to address further, so that in the question and answer few minutes at the end, I can try and answer a few of those and address those for you. So I found that in the first 2 to 3 weeks of this war, we were in shock. We were shattered. We were completely thrown off balance. Our equilibrium was lost. And what happened for a lot of people is they went into an immediate state, which is normal and natural, of fight and flight response for the body. What is this fight-flight response? Is the body's ability to be able to get us safely away from danger. That means running away from danger. That means turning around and fighting against danger. And there are also those of us in this response who also freeze. So you may have experienced a variety of different aspects of this within the first 2 to 3 weeks. So for many of my clients, and us specifically in the first few days, felt frozen, absolutely frozen, couldn't do anything, couldn't concentrate on work. Anything that would normally have taken me 3 or 4 hours to do, anything that would have taken me half an hour to do was now taking me 3 to 4 hours to do. And then that progressed to this intermingled fright, feeling fear, uncertainty, what will be. And at the same time, this caused my appetite to disappear. I know many of my clients who I've spoken to, this even continued for a while, this inability to eat, to put food into your digestive tract. And I'm going to explain to you why that is so normal. Then we came out of the first 3 weeks where life seemed to be, and I'm going to put this in inverted commas, a little bit more normal. We were used to what this new normal situation was. We were at war. We were trying to return to some normalcy, some form of normal life. And we started to engage in the world a little bit more again. By engaging in the world meant that we were able to implement tasks that we previously weren't able to do. So maybe now work was becoming a little bit easier. Maybe sleep was becoming a little bit easier. Maybe your appetite returned a little bit more. And together with this, all of a sudden comes a wave of emotions that were suppressed in the first 2 to 3 weeks by your body taking over with this freeze, flight, fight response. So when this dulls down a little bit, then all of a sudden your more logical brain can start acting again, and the emotions that you perhaps didn't want to feel in the beginning now start surfacing. And what are those emotions? Those are continued fear, uncertainty, anxiety, what will be. And together with that, often now comes a return of appetite. And that is where I found for a lot of my clients that from week 3 onwards, that emotional eating has started to become something that is that they are grappling with. Okay. And I want to put your mind at rest about what emotional eating is, because it does not mean that there is something wrong with you, especially if you have had some kind of difficult relationship with food in the past, and food has been something that you have always looked to soothe difficult and challenging emotions. Then at a time like this will be in much greater, you'll sense it, you'll feel it so much more. Why is this something that I want to give you the skills of how to manage? Because when we feel overwhelmed so much and we start relying on food as a soother, it can also make us feel more negative and more disconnected from our body as well. And at a time like this, feeling connected to our body and feeling as positive in our mindset is incredibly important, because we have a lot to do. We are a nation and we are being asked from ourselves in a unified way, as well as the world at large, to stand up and be a light unto the other nations as well. So when we think about why we look to food for the soothing, is for a number of different reasons. I want you to think back to, for those of us who can remember, most of us won't, the day we were born. Okay, imagine the day you were born. Out you come into this beautiful world, screaming, okay, hopefully screaming. And what is one of the first things that you experience? You are swaddled, okay, and you are calmed and soothed by your mother, hopefully, by either receiving a bottle or you are breastfed, which means that one of the first things you are told is that in order to feel safe and soothed and calm, you need to be held and you need to receive something in your oral cavity in order to not only nourish you and give you the food that you need, but also to calm you down. And for those of you who took a dummy or a pacifier, if you come from America, I'm not sure what the people from the UK call it. You can type that in the chat for me. Everyone calls it something different.
Dummy, as far as I know.
Dummy, okay. You are taught that this is the way to feel safe. Now, as adults, how often do we walk around going, I need a hug myself, which is in fact a very, very soothing tool. In fact, I had a webinar last week and I interviewed a social worker. And one of the tips she gave us was to do this to ourselves, which was very, very soothing. I invite you all to try that. But also getting a hug, giving a hug, receiving a hug. Over the last 8 weeks, at times I've walked up to my husband and said, I just need a hug. Or I've walked up to my daughter and I said, I need a hug, even though I can see she's probably the one who needs it. Sometimes we need to also be tuning into what other people are needing. But what does that hug do? It returns you to that state of, I'm safe, I'm okay, I'm taken care of. And these are all messages that we need to be giving to our body because we are still in a state of fight, flight, fear, freeze response. When it comes to food, and we have this need to soothe with food, there are two questions I always ask my clients to address. The first question to ask is, am I actually hungry? And there are two types of hunger. There is physiological or physical hunger, that your body is actually giving you a message. Your stomach is saying to your brain, I'm running on empty. Or your blood sugar levels are dropping and your blood sugar is being monitored by an area in your brain that is giving another message to your brain saying, my blood sugar level is dropping, I need to eat something. That is physical, that's physiological hunger. And then there are many other kinds of hunger that come as well. And those fall into the category of generally more of a psychological hunger. We can get hungry because we smell food that we like, and that starts our mouth watering. We can get hungry because we hear somebody eating something. You think of somebody crunching, crisps or popcorn, those kind of things that all already trigger us and go, oh, that would be nice for me to have. We can feel hungry because we see something that we like. How often do you walk past a bakery? I'm a sucker for bakeries. And you look in the window and you're, wow, that looks amazing. And immediately your brain tells you what that tastes like. So you start getting a craving for something, even though you may not be hungry. When we are psychologically hungry, there's an emptiness within us that needs to be filled. And even if you choose to eat food in that moment, it's not going to fill the spot. I had a conversation with a client yesterday whose late father was a Holocaust survivor. And one of the things that he promised her was that she would never go to bed hungry, because he had. And through our work together, we uncovered that he wasn't only addressing physical hunger with her, he was addressing emotional hunger, because he, as a 5-year-old, was put in an orphanage, and there were maybe 20 kids to one German caregiver. So they had the basics. They had food, whatever little they had. They had a bed to sleep in. But what they didn't have was that connection of a mother. And when I think about this, I think about the hostages that are being released at the moment, the children that are returning, those that maybe didn't have a mother with them, a father with them over this period of time. But we all have, on some level, an inner food connection that when we feel an emptiness, when we feel off balance, our equilibrium has been lost, we lose trust in the world and in ourselves. The only way that we see that we can fill that is, logically, we think, with food, because we go back to that very primal response of a bottle, being breastfed, or a dummy. And when we can't manage difficult emotions, and we are all experiencing them right now, then this is something that becomes the coping mechanism. So I want to give you the skills of how to be able to, first of all, understand what this is all about, and second of all, how to overcome it in a way that still honors the hunger that you're feeling, whether it's emotional or physiological, as well as the emotions that you're feeling and the mindset. So I want you to think of this as a starting point. If we take our hand and we put our thumb like this and our fingers over, okay, this represents our brain, okay? On the outside here is our logical brain, our reasoning brain. We know what's going on. We know what the situation is. We also know that we have resources, tools to be okay. But on the inside, we have this inner part of our brain, which is connected to that primal response that just wants to protect us and get us away from danger. And when we are experiencing stress like we are now, our logical brain is less active. But our inner brain system, there's many different names for it, I don't want to confuse you with it now, is what is running the show, because that is how we survive. So how can we get out of this survival mode and into logical, that will help support ourselves, not only from the emotional eating, comfort eating that we're experiencing, but also to be able to get through our days, because the stress is ongoing. And if we allow that middle part of our brain to run the show on an ongoing basis, our stress continues to rise. And we have then, unfortunately, other chronic illnesses that come up. So anybody who has more elevated cholesterol will be at risk for heart disease. I'm really not trying to paint a negative picture here. I promise you I'll get to the inspiration. Okay. If you have elevated blood pressure, you're probably noticing your blood pressure's up. If you have diabetes or are borderline diabetic, pre-diabetic, you're probably noticing your blood sugar level is elevated. If you have inflammatory conditions, you notice that your joints are worse, or your skin is worse, or digestively, maybe you're getting more stomach cramps or reflux or bloating. Anything that would normally be a discomfort or an illness that you suffer from, stress makes worse. So we need to take ourselves out of this, okay, and into logical. because that also makes us more effective in our days. How do we do this? The body works on two different systems. First of all, our nervous system, which is the one that is responsible for both addressing danger as well as comfort. And that means that we are either in fight or flight or freeze mode versus rest, digest, and restorative mode. And what switches us from one to the other, what switches us from being primarily this inner part of the brain to logical brain, is something called the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve, you can type in the chat if anybody hasn't heard about it. I do invite you, if you would like, next week I'm running a masterclass all on the vagus nerve, which will give you tools and techniques. So you're welcome. I'll put the link for that in the chat afterwards. But this vagus nerve, literally, I call it my magic wellness switch, switches us from fight, flight, freeze mode, needing comfort food, needing to be addressing the emotions in a very primitive way versus addressing logical brain, rest, digest, and restore so that we can feel more balanced in our lives and in charge of our lives. So the vagus nerve runs from the base of our brain to our voice box, to our heart, to our lungs, to our diaphragm, which sits at the top of our stomach, to our intestines, to our all over, liver, kidneys, you name it. And there are certain breathing exercises that help us to access that vagus nerve, and we need to know how to do them effectively. So one of the things that I find that we are all in a position with now is I felt this also on Saturday night, waiting for the hostages to be released, and it was taking time, like we were holding our breath. Are you holding your breath? Do you find during the day that you're holding your breath? I sometimes have to remind myself, hold on, breathe. Now, obviously I'm breathing, otherwise I would have been on the floor. But we need to breathe effectively in order to help switch us from this very primitive brain survival instinct into being able to be more capable and empowered in our day. So how we do that is by breathing into our belly, as opposed to taking a deep breath where our chest pops out. So the best way to do this, all of my clients know this exercise, is by placing one hand on your stomach, one hand on your chest. And when you breathe in, you need to breathe in so that your hand on your stomach is moving out more than the hand on your chest. Literally, no ladies love this because it makes us pop our stomach out, and we always want a very flat stomach. And when we breathe out, we suck our stomach back in. If you have been breathing in a very shallow way, just doing that can make you feel a little bit lightheaded. So there are a number of different vagus nerve exercises that you can do in order to be able to enhance activating the vagus nerve, which takes you out of fight, flight, freeze mode and into this more rest, digest, restorative phase. I see I have 2 minutes left, so I want to address how do we, with comfort eating, with emotional eating, still honor that, as well as take care of ourselves. So the question needs to be, am I physiologically hungry, or do I feel emotionally hungry? Do I feel empty inside? Are there difficult emotions that I'm experiencing? The next question is, what are those emotions? Can I name them for myself? Because if there are difficult emotions, then what I try and do is push them down. And by eating and suppressing it and soothing like I did when I was a baby, that is what helps me to cope better. But the truth is, if we really are honest with ourselves and we ask ourselves, does that help? The answer is really no, because we cannot fill an emotional void with something physical. So my advice is to ask yourself the question, am I physiologically hungry or am I emotionally hungry? If I need to eat something, great, go and have something to eat. If my body's screaming, cake needs to be what I am going to have, say that's fine, you'll eat the cake, but let me first eat a meal which is going to give me good energy and going to boost my mood. Something that has some vegetables and salad, some lean protein, some healthy fats, some complex carbohydrates. If you want to understand more about balanced eating, you're more than welcome to get hold of me and I'll point you in the right direction. And then at the end of that meal, sit down, Put that slice of cake on your plate and eat it slowly and mindfully and allow yourself the enjoyment of having it. Because when we do it like that, then we are honoring our body and we are honoring the food as well. One last point. I could speak forever, Lesley. I know.
I'm sure there is also a question, how do we deal with ongoing emotional non-eating? I'm just assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, most people have the problem of emotional eating, not non-eating. But do you want to just address that for a moment?
I'd like to understand a little bit more what she means by non-eating.
Maybe if, like you said in the beginning, that with the stress that one doesn't eat.
Okay, so that non-eating means that you're still frozen, that your body also, or maybe not necessarily frozen, but in this fear state, which means that your blood flow is away from your stomach and intestinal area. So you're not getting as much of a message from your stomach to your brain to say, I need to eat something. In that situation, my advice is that it is still important to nourish your body, even if you don't feel necessarily like eating. The longer you go without eating, the lower your blood sugar level drops. And that can also spark more anxiety and more of the survival mode state. So even if you feel like you can't eat, my advice really is to still give yourself smaller little meals throughout the day to still try and maintain your blood sugar level. And in doing that, you boost your energy and you boost your mood as well. Obviously, the type of food you eat in those moments are incredibly important. And I'm happy to address that. If you ever type that in the chat, I'll put in the link, a Calendly link as well. If you want to just jump on a 15-minute call with me, I'm happy to speak to anybody about, their own individual questions and address those with you with the greatest of pleasure. In fact, I'll do that right now. Are there any other questions?
Right. And you can also tell us, Justine, you have an upcoming course, or is it a masterclass? Do you want to just explain if anyone's interested?
Yes.
Details?
Okay. So there's my Calendly link. I hope that comes out. And then the masterclass next Monday, it's on Monday evening at 7:00. It's a 90-minute masterclass that I've run before, but I'm doing it specifically now because of our current situation. It is on the vagus nerve. It goes into a lot of detail of what I've discussed today about stress, how stress affects our body, whether it's physical, psychological, psycho-spiritual. There's so many different aspects, and it gives you a lot of tools. I'll go through a lot of the exercises, the vagus nerve exercises, things that you can implement literally. It takes 2 to 3 minutes a day to be able to do them, as well as I will give you meal ideas, some recipes as well of what foods to include also to be able to boost your mood, reduce stress, and foods that fuel that vagus nerve, because that's also really, really important. So it's a 90-minute class and a Q&A section. And in the Q&A time, every participant will be able to give me an indication of where they're holding right now and what their immediate needs are. And I'll give individual coaching on the call as well with that. Plus, there's a workbook that you will be able to download. I think it's about a 50-page workbook with exercises and more information as well. So that link is in the chat as well.
Right. Okay. Fabulous. Fantastic. Justine, I certainly found you very inspiring today. Lots of tips, lots of information. I'm sure everyone else did too, as well as those that are going to be hearing the recordings. For those of you that want to watch previous recordings, I wrote it in the chat, but anyone that's listening, it's all on my YouTube channel, Lesley Kaplan, or you can type in Monday Motivation Spotlight or on Spotify. Justine, thank you so much. As I say, and as you've said, this is such an emotional period now with what I call an emotional roller coaster, where in any given day we can have ups and downs. And yes, it wasn't only about eating, but that was certainly a big part of it. And just generally our feeling and our general feeling of being, well and staying well. And as we've said before, and as I've always said, in order that we can get through this and in order that we can help others, we have to have self-care and look after ourselves and know when we need certain things more than others. So thank you so much again, Justine, for being our guest. Thank you, of course, to our hosts, ACI, and our sponsor for this month, Israel Properties. Next week, we have a very, very interesting and well-known guest. So make sure you diarize the date, Sherry Mandel. Most of you have heard of Sherry Mandel. Okay, she's unfortunately, she's become and taken her tragedy to a different level, that she's been known for the founding of the Kobe Mandel Foundation since her son was tragically killed. And she's taken it into a lot of different levels too, and with the different books she's written. So make sure that you join us next week. And every Monday, put it in your calendar ongoing from 9 to 9:30 at the Monday Motivation Spotlight Series. Justine, thank you so much again. It's been wonderful seeing you and having you here, and wonderful seeing you all. Have a wonderful, safe day. We wish Am Yisrael everything of the best. Batzlacha, not easy decisions being made. Stay safe, be safe, stay positive. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lesley. Bye.